Dorothy Harrison Eustace. Without her, it couldn't have happened. It started in Switzerland, in Vevey, a little village above Lake Geneva. That's where Mrs. Harrison Eustace, a Philadelphian, had fortunate fields, where she tried to scientifically breed German shepherds for endurance, temperament, and work, not fashionably good-looking show dogs. She trained dogs for the Swiss police forces, for the Swiss Army. Here you see the Swiss police working with Fortunate Fields dogs. 2, 3, 4, and turn, and good dog, and heel. Off we go, 2, 3, 4. About face, whoop, and there they go. Here, this police dog gets the bad guy. You're busted. Fortunate Fields dogs were also bred and trained as liaisons to run wires through the enemy lines for the Swiss Army. Dorothy Harrison Eustace also observed a German program in Potsdam, where shepherds were trained by the Germans for blinded veterans of the First World War. After observing the German program at Potsdam, Mrs. Harrison Eustace wrote about it in the famous article called The Seeing Eye that appeared in the Saturday Evening Post in November 1927. The article was read to Morris Frank, a young Tennessean in Nashville, who in turn wrote to Dorothy Harrison Eustace and asked her to train a dog for him. She agreed. So Morris had himself shipped to Switzerland as a package on a boat. It was the only way a blind person could travel independently at that time. There, Dorothy Harrison Eustace, her husband George, and Jack Humphrey had chosen a German shepherd named Kiss to be trained as a guide for Morris Frank. Jack Humphrey, the geneticist and trainer, does not appear in any of these films, probably because he was the one doing the filming. That's George Eustace handling Kiss, a beautiful German shepherd, typical of Dorothy's Fortunate Fields dogs. This is George Eustace doing the training. He trained one dog. Jack Humphrey trained another, so they'd have a couple to choose from. They had observed the German program, but modified it, and were really inventing it as they went along. Here they're trying to get Kiss to pull ahead and guide, but she doesn't have any idea what they're trying to get her to do. Go that way, just a little bit, stop at the step. Go to the step, stop at the step. What do you want? So they finally got it done. Here's the flight of stairs that comes down from the cable car in Vevey. So they're going down the stairs, they get to the bottom. Kiss still has no idea what she's being asked to do here. A lot of poking in the butt here. And we're off. Nice pants on George there. A few weeks later, things are really different. Kiss is starting to get the idea here. You can see she's really moving out well. Watch her stop at the step. Just stops well back and holds him back from the edge. That flexible harness gives poor feedback. The dogs really had to slam on their brakes to prevent people from getting into trouble. Look at that dog slow down as she's getting up to the curb. A little clearance error, and finally George Eustace feels confident enough to take a blindfold test with Kiss before assigning her to Morris Frank. Le Voit was the international training center founded in 1929, where Fortunate Fields dogs were trained as guides by international instructors from all over Europe. The hope being that these instructors would return to their own countries and begin dog guide programs there. The dogs were trained in basic obedience, very similar to what they learn today, including fetch, and including this handshake. All the dogs fetch, return the object, give it on the out, and then shake hands. They're also trained in all the standard dog guide techniques, some overhead work, initiative, pulling out, stair work. Not always perfect at this point. Go, get distracted by some kids, then keep going down the stairs. Good dog. Okay, off we go. Stopping at curbs, going straight across streets, the straight line concept. All those things are very similar to what they were learning today. Again, the techniques have come a ways. But then again, our dogs don't usually have to go around horses. Evidently, one does that with a great deal of caution. Narrow clearance, sit, give a paw. To stop their people from overstepping, the dogs had to sit. This dog wants to stop a little bit too early. Techniques are a little different than what we would use nowadays. The same dog, I think, keeps running out of gas. Stopped a little short. Pedestrian work, very crowded conditions, narrow streets. Here the dog's really beginning to look like something, showing good initiative and drive. Moving ahead, not pulling too hard here, doing a good job. Around the market. Here we have a team of 3 instructors working together. This one got a little bit distracted. Good stopping at the up curb, stop at the down curb, stop at the up curb. All of this training leading up to traffic work and intelligent disobedience. Dogs are trained to obey commands, the forward command to cross a street, for example, then forward again out of the street. But they're also trained to intelligently disobey commands, which might be incorrectly given, and if obeyed, might endanger their blind masters. Of course, traffic checks don't always work out the way you want them to. Okay, this guy will cut me off. Come on. Here's another good stop and hold back. Very good. Little dog distraction work, and now that we've got that out of the way, we're just about ready for final blindfolds. Coming down these stairs under blindfold for the first time must have been quite a test of confidence. Notice how these dogs pull out, slam on their brakes. Good traffic work there again. This is all taking place in Lausanne, Switzerland in the early 30s. A Captain Balziger, who was a veterinarian, had given his house as the training center in Lausanne, a much busier town than Vevey. Here's the house, and here are instructors returning at the end of a day of training to their kennels and headquarters and dormitory in Lausanne. Caution, blind people and their dogs. And here they are. 2 blind people. Notice that the one fellow is holding the harness for the other guy and his cane. People are trained with a cane at the same time. Long, flexible harnesses. These blind people are willing to put their lives in the paws of dogs because they've heard that this is a way for safe, independent travel. They believe this system of training dogs as guides has real potential to liberate them. Here we're doing obedience. A little less polished than they were with the instructor. You'll notice on the back on the kennel the Fortunate Fields crest. All the dogs were donated by Fortunate Fields to Le Voit. Doing fetch, the dog wants to go back to the instructor, comes back here, you take it. Putting on the harness, that flexible, soft harness, and then being handed the cane. These 2 are having a love affair already. You can just tell they're going to be a superb match. Getting along really great. Nobody has to tell him to pet and scratch his dog. This flight of stairs for blind people must have been absolutely terrifying. A few days later, they're looking a little bit more together. Trainer can stand back a little bit further. Left arm looking a little tense. Here's a lesson on how to use your cane with a dog guide. First of all, you don't want to do this. Don't point it way out there because you'll hit somebody in the head. Keep it low. Small movements out like that. See that? Right turn, left turn. Notice all the passers-by. They are absolutely fascinated by this. This is a new sight. Something new in the world. Blind people traveling independently with beautiful German shepherds. Remember, there were no mobility instructors at this point. Nobody was traveling independently with a long cane. This was brand new. Mobility instructors didn't appear on the scene until 1944, more than 10 years later. And this is why instructors retired young. Whoa. Evidently the guy lived because we see him later walking independently. And this is a few weeks later. These people are traveling independently, moving across enormous squares like this with their dogs to small targets like this up curb. Walking on these terribly narrow sidewalks, probably in Lausanne, at great speed. Terrific confidence. There's the cane in the right hand. This fellow who survived that close call with the trolley car is moving through a very difficult area using his cane as a probe. This fellow is trying to find his way around this horse very carefully, using the cane as a probe, following his dog as well, being very careful around the horse. Here the cane is used as a probe to detect the depth of the steps. Of course, that harness being so soft and flexible, it didn't give good information about the depths of steps in the same way that the modern rigid harness does. Going through a marketplace independently with his dog, moving independently through as difficult a crowd as you'll find anywhere today, surrounded by the smell of food in the open air, much more scent distraction than you'll find in the average supermarket today. Here's a woman working with a guide. Helps to remind us that Adelaide Clifford is also not seen in these videos. One of the first instructors, a woman without whom the Seeing Eye would never have been able to get started, invaluable to the dog guide movement at Fortunate Fields and in the United States at the Seeing Eye. Here you'll see one of the early women of the Seeing Eye, Missy Dowge, teaching a class in Paris in 1931. There on the left, with a little white cane in her hand. But the most critical part, of course, remains Dorothy Harrison Eustace and Morris Frank, here shown in very rare footage, in training, in Vevey. Dorothy driving by in the car. She keeps trying to hit Morris. And Kiss, now named Buddy, does a fantastic job. Here they are, soon to depart for the United States, where they founded the Seeing Eye on January 29th, 1929.